Hey, good evening, everyone. How are you guys doing? It's me, Carolyn Denise, also known as Niecy. I wanted to jump on here. I had just finished listening up to Jamil Shamshid Dean on a talk radio. I think it's WOLCD News, which is out of Washington, D.C. And shout out to Jamil. I was able to hear him and listen to his story. I have been reading this book, and I know you guys have seen it on my TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Don't call my dummy no dummy. I highly recommend, if you are an Indigenous person of color, to grab a copy of that book on Amazon and order it. He has a second book, which I started reading. I told you don't call my dummy no dummy. And I just want to pick up where I left off last night. I did upload a video on my page, and I did put it on my YouTube channel. And I just want to jump on here and continue reading. And so let's get right into it. First, before I start, I do want to say, no one's joined me, and that's fine. Whoever sees the video later on will see it. But my whole intent to this is to bring awareness to this so that we understand that there has been a great injustice done. And until we reclaim our heritage and know who we are, and I have to agree with Jamil 110% when he says that he wrote these books for his children as memoirs and as breadcrumbs, I guess, or not even breadcrumbs. He left the books, or he wrote the books so they could understand who they are and where they came from. As do I feel that a lot of us in the melanated community, Indigenous people of color community, we have lost our way. We don't know what tribe we come from. We don't know our lineage. And I was fortunate enough to grow up with my grandmother's sisters. And so she raised my mom after my grandmother passed away in childbirth with my aunt, my mother's sister, baby sister. My mom was raised by one of her mom's siblings. And so that's how I was able to get that, get the upbringing and the lineage and understanding who I was associated with. And, at that time in the 60s and 70s, they were calling themselves Cherokee and Blackfoot. And I know Chief Red Wolf had mentioned this morning the names of the tribes, the proper names of the tribes. And he was very fortunate enough to know 3 of his grandparents, great-great-grands. He knew them. I didn't. I just knew my grandparents on my dad's side and my grandparents on my mother's side. My mother's father, I knew him. And my grandmother, obviously, like I said, she passed away. So I knew their siblings, and I grew up with them. And I knew, based on the conversations that I was hearing while I was getting my hair, straightened with a hot comb and holding my ears back so that I wouldn't get burned. I was told these things as a child. And so, growing up and going to school, we identified as being Black, but it was always said that we were not Black, we were Indian. And the thing was, back in the 70s and 80s is, every Black person has Indian in them. Well, it's not true. We are the Indians. And Jamil does a great job outlining that fact. It's just now that we've been disassociated from that, and we've been rebranded and reclassified multiple times. And this is why we have so many problems within our community. That's point blank simple. And we have people that are profiting off of our culture and off of our way of life and telling us who we are, and we don't know who we are. So that's why I'm a big proponent of you doing your genealogy. You buying the books and you doing your genealogy and you finding out where you come from and who your people are. That's my point to making this video, is for you all to know who you are, find your heritage, your lineage, and reclaim what is yours, because we have a lot of people that are benefiting from us, right? When you start doing your genealogy, you'll pull the birth certificates, death certificates, land grants, military records, the same things that I'm doing right now. Some of it is, you do have a cost to it that's involved with it, but I highly recommend that each person do that, each Indigenous person of color. Now, I don't use the word Black anymore. I don't. Hey, Curtis, how are you doing? I do not use that black and white vocabulary anymore because I realized by doing my research and studying and understanding what has transpired that we're not black. I am copper colored, as in most of the indigenous people here in the United States. They are tawny, ruddy, swarthy, copper colored. We are different shades. And so when I say light skin now, that means you're white. You're just a lighter shade than I am. You're light. You're not white. You hold up a piece of paper in your face and you're not that color of that paper, you know? So I just wanted to make that commentary first before I start reading because I think it's important. I stopped on page 22 on his second book, and I'm just going to go right into it. I'm going to read what's on these pages, and I highly implore each one of you to, hey, yes, Ancestry.com. And there's a couple of others over here. I have a book that I'm writing everything down in. And then another gentleman that I follow, Kumiro Awa, who I post all of his videos on my page. It's Kurimeo. He actually does genealogy too. You can hit him up and see if he can help you. I know he's in high demand, so it may be a while before you can get in touch with him. But I would highly recommend you just start doing it. And I do not recommend anyone doing the DNA stuff. I don't recommend that at all. Spitting in a tube or swabbing your mouth and sending it in, because it's set up by a corporation, and they even tell you it's for entertainment purposes only. And basically, they're collecting your DNA. They're collecting your DNA and they're putting you in a database, and they're telling you, based on these matches, this is where your family came from. It's all a bunch of bullshit. Because if you go look at the laws that are on the U.S. government websites and go pay the money to print off the documents and get the PDFs, you'll see that there's been legislation passed based on the treaties that they made with our people, our ancestors. As I always want to say before I start off in this read, like Janelle says, there were over 650 treaties that the United States corporation made with the dark-skinned people that look like you and I, okay? And they broke every last one of them. When they came over here on these ships, there was over 500 tribes, and they took them down to 5 civilized tribes, and they systematically planted light-skinned people in those positions and created laws, drafted Dawes laws, the Dawes Act, because you can go look it up. And they systematically started murdering, killing, raping, and enslaving our people and sending them over to the Caribbean. And that's the truth. You can go look up the history yourself. See, what we've been taught in the school books are not what's on the actual legislative books. And I don't know how in the hell that happened, other than the fact that we had Dr. Walter Plecker and people I can't think of her, Margaret Singer, which did the Negro Project, right? So you have a lot of people in key positions of power that set up these legislation, that set up these laws and have these people put in these corporations to do one thing only, and as to eliminate as many of us as possible and get us off the soil. And they set up shop over here, and they've reclassified us, and people don't know who they are. They don't know the truth. So let me go ahead and start reading, and then we'll deep dive into this more. So I'm on page 22 for those of you who do have the book. I'm on the second book. I told you, don't call my dummy no dummy. And it says, and as the invader moved westward, they encountered more people labeled with the classification of Indian, Negro, colored, and black, and that they rioted against. And the only reason these riots did not turn into massacres to these people, because they fought back and they survived. Okay. I surmise that others may have wished these events would be captured in the massacre listing because of the continuous generational attacks outlined within this book against the non-white folks calling Turtle Island their home. And we have to have these intelligent conversations, and we have to address the elephant that's in the room, right? We've been we've been treated the absolute worst, because not only did they create or do a paper genocide and reclassified us at least 6 times with our races, but they've shipped off half of our families. We have families that are in the Dominican Republic and all the Caribbean islands. We have people over there that we don't even know about. And it's because of what happened when the colonizers came to this land. So we need to have these intelligent and these difficult conversations about what happened. So I'm going to continue to read. It says the important part is that it is documented information that can be researched easily today. And he's right. So if these folks who are Indian, Negro, colored, and blacks, now African American, suffering from the encroachment and riots were a supposedly enslaved race of people from another land, there would have been no reason to have these riots waged against them. And I can tell you there's nowhere in the census, because I believe the census started in 1790, if I'm not mistaken, there was only two races that they documented. It was black and it was white. That was it. Black or white. That's how they did that. So he says, if they were so-called slaves, that they were property of others, here's where common sense tells you they would have been they would have been controlled in some sort of bonded situation during this period. As the story goes, they were the ones who supposedly built the great nation taken over by the invaders. More importantly, if they were among the so-called captured enslaved Africans supposedly brought to the North American shores that from documented numbers only totaled 92,000 and have no color documented, which arrived between the years of 1619, when the English lie began, until 1808, when Congress outlawed people of color from entering what was known as the U.S. colonial states, which location was along the eastern seaboard at the time. It was not until 1965 that the law of the United States opened its doors to an increase in immigrants from African countries. The prior quota since 1795 for immigrants from Africa, excluding Egypt, totaling 1,100 per year. The number was increased to 1,400 under the 1952 McRan-Walter Act. It was the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, also known as the Hart-Cellular Act, which repealed the national quotas, and subsequently there was a substantial increase in the number of immigrants from developing countries, particularly in Africa and Asia. Between the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 to 2017, the sub-Saharan African-born population in the United States grew from a minuscule number to over 2.1 million people, because the U.S. legislation from its inception had effectively limited and excluded Africans from entering in the country. The act identifies that the U.S. and the foreign-born sub-Saharan Africans are distinct from native-born African Americans, which is a misnomer. Let's just say they're distinct. There's a difference from the African and the indigenous black person here in the United States. I hate using that word. Let's just say indigenous or Indian, autochthonous or Negro. There's a difference from an African and a Negro. Bone density, structure, everything is different. It's not the same. In spite of many of whose ancestors were supposedly involuntary, were brought from the West and Central Africa to the colonial United States by the so-called historic transatlantic slave trade that I spoke about above, instead of the transcontinental slave trade that can be verified by old books, periodicals, and journals of that time. As you can see from the previous sentences, there is proof that a small number of sub-Saharan Africans were traveling to the newly formed country called the United States. The math isn't adding up. So basically what he's saying is he found 92,000. Dane Calloway also said the same thing. I think he said he found 50. And I found, to be honest with you, when I started looking, I found about 52,000. I didn't get the other 40,000 that Jamil got. So between the three of us, we came up with an average between 52 and 92,000 people that came over in the transatlantic slave trade. So it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. It's not adding up. So what they're telling us is not true because they can't prove the numbers. They can't back the numbers up. It's just a word of mouth and we've been accepting it for all this time. So it says, again, critical thinking is paramount to decipher the lies told as history. While writers of so-called history purposely overlook and completely disregard the true events that had transpired, this country has been put mechanisms in place that shield this information from seeing the light of day. Although it exists, right? If you didn't live it, it didn't happen. And even if you have lived it, well, they will rewrite it to say you didn't. And they're doing that right now. Y'all know that. They're changing the laws every day, and the text, the school books that the kids are now looking at and what they're viewing. You know, I'm not even going to go down that road because you can get me started on that. I just say that you got a child going to school, and my grandkids go to public school, and I really wish they could be homeschooled. I can't do it because I'm still working, but nowadays, because of what's going on, we really need to teach our younglings the truth, because this is not the truth, what's been placed in textbooks. I was not taught the truth. Neither were you, Curtis. And that's honest. That's my own honest assessment based on what I'm seeing. Today, television and movies give the average person their history lessons with no regard to factual events by using conjecture, which shows a collective tendency to make decisions about the past based on purposeful, insufficient, false information. And he's right about that. Over the past few years, communicating with beings under the age of 40 is like hitting a brick wall. And he's right. Their staunch regurgitation of information taught by this governmental school system without any critical thought to the information I have shared, or straight out could not believe that what I shared had happened. In our current state of revisionism, they have rewritten people and events worldwide to take a glorious conquest story of the Americas instead of the barbaric, dehumanizing events that had taken place, and coupled with the global partnerships to hide the truth, which can be verified by following the money. The information exists that shows a transfer of funds globally that amounts to billions. And if you read his book in here, he'll show you the author and pages where he talks about George Washington. Now, most people don't know that he was a dark-skinned person. I hate to use the word black, but he was dark-skinned. He was an indigenous person, and so was Abraham Lincoln. And that's the truth. I have his memoir, his biography over here on the shelf behind me. So, you know, they've whitewashed a lot of things to their benefit. And I'm not saying that it's no hate. I'm just simply saying it's time for us to come to the table and talk about this bullshit. It's time for us to understand what's transpired, because this is why our race of people are lost now. They don't know who they are. They don't. So, and it says, the information exists that shows a transfer of funds globally that amounts to billions annually as some sort of aid shared with other nations without any care for the well-being of the BIPOC, which is Black Indigenous people of color, who had domiciled within the continental United States since time immemorial. And through the flick of the pen over the past 150 years, they have erased our past and all the great accomplishments contributed to the global human family. And that's true. They've reclassified us at least 6 times, you guys. Go do your genealogy and start pulling the records. You're gonna see. I had one auntie and uncle. They started off being Negro, and somehow after that they were Negro, and when they died they were colored. And then I had another set of grandparents that were Indian, and then they changed them to Negro. And I was like, how can they do these records like that? I mean, it's you can see where it's wrote in. You can actually pull them and look at them. And it says here on the pages, I have found the original beings of this continent have suffered greatly from being written out of history as a people of the human family with no regard. After you have read through the list of riots and massacres, my hope is that through my writings, I will contrast and show you how our current state within the social and political matrix. How did they whitewash Abraham so well, and no one really teaches it? No wonder he was killed. Yeah. And you know what? And Camille, I posted a video on him. I'll send it to you through Facebook Messenger, but I will tell you this. His name wasn't Abraham Lincoln. It was Abraham Linkhorn. He was mulatto, but he was tall and he was dark. He was dark skinned. And the pictures that we see now was 2 brothers. They were fur traders. Kimura breaks it all down. He gives you the publications, the authors. He shows you the pictures of how they transformed him over time. I mean, he does a great job. I mean, these guys are on point. You can go look at, and then the thing is, you don't just take their word for it. Go do the books. yourself. Go buy the books yourself or go pull the PDF. While he's doing a Zoom presentation, you can log on your laptop and go to the website he's looking at, and you can look at it for yourself while he's doing the presentation. That's how he is. He gives you book, chapter, verse. You can go look at it yourself. And he gives you the laws and legislative the documents that you can go pull on the books, the Congress. So, I mean, it's there. They're just not teaching it. So it says, after you have read through the list of riots and massacres, my hope is through my writings, I will contrast and show how our current state within the social and political matrix, the system is covertly denying our human rights and over right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as defined by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights through racist laws, statutes, and codes. And they have passed those laws as, as a way to put themselves in power and keep control systematically. But the crazy thing is there's more of us than there are of them. And that's why they had to ship so many of us off and massacre us. They even went so far as to, I do believe, I don't know, you probably didn't catch the radio podcast that was about 30 minutes ago. And they were talking about how they actually went to assault him. And I believe it was George Washington who did that. I haven't read his biography yet. I've read Abraham Lincoln, but I haven't read Washington's. But it came down to the fact that he had to go to a Sultan Prince and also a Moorish prince to help have troops come over here to fight against the British and the colonizers. And so what was happening is those people were dark skinned like you and I. They were of color, and they were being shipped off as slaves in the war. They were prisoners of war. And I believe in one of the court cases they were talking about, there was a white man that had to stand up and say, no, this guy is actually a prince, and you're arresting him and you're shipping him off, and he is of royal stature. So, I mean, and he's a person of color. So they were doing a lot of shit, and they don't talk about it. And then, when you bring it up to someone who's under 40, they're going to look at you like, well, that didn't really happen. You believe everything you see on TV, right? And you still brush your teeth with fluoride, and you still drink tap water. Why am I even talking to you? You know what I'm saying? So, in this next part, it says, from nothing to something. Question, how do you change history and write yourself into it? It is by the creation of laws. Remember, per their doctrine, only one group of people who went into slavery in the Americas, and that is the Negro. And then there are countless documents that prove that Indians did also. And there is plenty of archived information to support the statement, not Native Americans. That's different. Native Americans are different. They're the Mongoloids. They're the lighter skinned people that are on the reservations now. Those are Native Americans. Those are not the indigenous peoples, right? Their people came over in the 18 and 1900s, right? There's a difference. And he breaks it down. He breaks it down. And also Chief Red Wolf breaks it down as well. So common sense proves that the Indian had to be the Negro. Look at how you write whiteness into American history through laws that benefit the controlling society. He's got one here, the Code of Virginia as amended to adjournment of General Assembly. It's on page 26. And he gives you these laws. I'm going to read one of them. It says 67, I guess it's Law 67 or Code 67, it says, colored persons and Indians defined. Every person in whom there is ascertainable any Negro blood shall be deemed and taken to be a colored person. And every person not a colored person having one fourth or mere of American Indian blood shall be deemed an American Indian, except the members of the Indian tribes living on the reservations allotted them by the Commonwealth of Virginia, having 1/4 or more of Indian blood and less than 1/16 blood of Negro blood, shall be deemed tribal Indians so long they are domiciled on said reservations. You see how they worded that shit? Yeah, they set up laws to benefit them. Yeah. And we can go research the Dawes Act too. And I don't know if he probably does have this in here. I haven't read all of it. So he says, see section 5099A. And this is another part of the law down here. It says, as the section read in the Code of 1887, persons having 1/4 or more Negro blood were deemed colored. While under the Code of 1924, every person having 1/16 or more of Negro blood was deemed colored. Y'all see that shit? Did y'all get that? 1/4 or more persons having Negro blood was deemed colored, while under code of 1924, every person having 1/16 or more of Negro blood was deemed colored. So you were deemed Negro or you were deemed colored. What the hell? The amendment of 1930. See, this is why our people should be telling our story with passion and accuracy, because they've used wordplay a lot and still is to this day. Yeah, and the thing about it is, Curtis, you really need to buy these books. I'm serious. But the thing about it is you've got a lot of people of color, like Dr. Omar Johnson. There's a couple of other TikTokers out there that I've been watching, and I don't even give them energy anymore. Like, I don't follow them. They just pop up on my feed, and I just delete or block or whatever, so I don't have that in my feed anymore. But there are a lot of them that are spreading misinformation to the younger generations, the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings, and they're believing this bullshit. They're on this out of Africa and Moorish theory, and it's not the truth, right? If you go look at the documentation, like he said, he found 92,000. When I looked at it, I only found like 52. Because I didn't continue to research, right? I probably would have found the other 40-something thousand if I would have continued doing the research. But I stopped because I was like, how does that add up to all of us that are here? There's no way 90,000 people came over and now we have like 8.1 billion people on the planet. And I forgot how many U.S. Americans we have here, and then how many people of color or black people of color we have here. So, I mean, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. And so them saying they brought us over on ships, we were already here. They were sending us over there. There's documentation showing that between 1.4 to 4 million people were shipped over there because they wanted the land and they got tired of fighting us, right? The ones who stayed here are the bad MFers who stayed and fought and started slaughtering them. I guess hence that's my family name, where they were doing scalping. They were killing these people. I mean, seriously, we had some serious wars. We did. We had some serious warrior clans. And they saw these people coming on these boats across the shore, these pale-skinned peoples. They were like, hey, get on your ship, turn around and go. I'm going to kill all of you. So, I mean, they had to get rid of them. What's your thoughts on the Haitian Revolution? I believe some of our brothers and sisters were shipped over there, too. I really do. And I believe the instability in this world is due to the lies that have been told. And it's one set of beings that continue to do this stuff. So when you're looking at what's going on in Haiti, like you're looking at what's going on in Palestine, right? It's the same thing. They came over here and they did that shit to us, and they're doing it all around the world. It's the Gujars. It's the Khazars. And Camille does an excellent, he's got like 20 episodes on these group of people. And it's one set of group of peoples, and it's the 1%ers. Upper 1% of the class, the controlling ruling class. They're the ones that's causing all this havoc all around the planet. They are chaos masters. It's the same MO. They do it every single time. Every single country that they go to, they do the same shit. It's the same people. It's just that here, because we're in America, we need to snap up out the coma. We need to snap up out the reality. And if I remember, I shared, and I think you saw it, a video where the Israeli ambassador was talking off camera candidly, but somebody was filming her ass, when she was saying that the problems that the Israeli have, the Jewish government has, right? The Jewish government has is with the young black people of today. And see, so when I hear those words coming to fruition, when I hear that her saying that, it ties into the fact that there are a lot of us that are waking up who are younger than us, who are waking up, but they're following this path of, you know, the out of Africa theory, the Moorish theory, when they're not understanding if they just do their genealogy and go pull the records and start looking at death certificates, marriage certificates, birth certificates, land grants, they're going to see that their family was from here the whole fucking time. And I mean, it's like, shut up or put up. Go do the research and come back, and then, okay. So, you know, you're on this out of Africa theory. And there have been Americans that have gone over to Africa and knew that they had relatives that were shipped over there. They knew that. They knew that. And there are some that went over there and didn't like it, had a hard time, because the Africans know who we are. They know we're American Indian. There's a difference between us. So, you know, same thing with Haiti. It's the same thing. They're going through the same shit that we're going through. And the sad part about it, Curtis, is all people of color are not our kin. All skin folk are not our kinfolk. There are a lot of melanated people who have sold out their race for the fiat currency, for a better lifestyle, for a fake illusion. They've sold us out, and they've led us astray. One in particular I can tell you about is Barry. Delusions of Humanity. I'm going to post a video on him after I get off of here. I'm going to post a video that he did of Barry Manchu. I'm gonna post that video. But there's been a number of people of color: Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Oprah Winfrey, all these people, Barack and Michelle Obama, Michael Obama. Let me say Michael Obama. There's been a lot of people of color that have gone up the ladder, have climbed up the ladder, but they've sold us down the ship. They've sold the ship downriver, and they've done us a disservice. And a lot of people of color listen to these people because they're in the limelight and they have the money and they believe they wouldn't lie and they have the best interest of the people at heart. They ain't got the best interest of nobody but themselves. They don't care about us. They never have. And it's proven in these laws and these treaties. If you go do the research, you'll see it, So it says on here, like I said, the amendment of 1930 also had the last proviso in McPherson versus Commonwealth 28 Gate 939. It was held that a woman whose father was white and whose mother's father was white and whose great-grandmother was of brown complexion was not a Negro in the sense of the section as it was in 1877. Let me say that again. Let me read that again and listen. This is the actual court case you can go look up. In McPherson versus the Commonwealth 28 Grant in Virginia, okay, and section 939, it was held that a woman whose father was white and whose mother's father was white and whose great-grandmother was of brown complexion was not a Negro in the sense of the section as it was in 1877. Cited in Moon versus Children's Home Social as the teaching mixed schools, see Virginia Constitution. So they started segregating people based on, they've always done that, based on their darkness. I have nieces who are biracial. I have family members who are biracial. And if you look at them, you wouldn't know that they are indigenous. They look to be light skin or pale face. They would pass for that. And I mean, these laws say that. That's what they did back in the day. And I'm not going to read the small fine print. It's real small, but you'll have to get the book. But it says, because the laws created were designed to benefit and to write themselves into the country's true history, we, the collective, fight the fight we do against this country of immigrants for our heritage. Today, the ethnological pilgrim is the non-ethological Indian, or in their terms, the Native American. Historically, the United States has had a binary racial classification system, often defining individuals as either black or white, which lasted until the mid-1800s, supported and proven by the census records. And that's right, it's true. Dan Calloway said the same damn thing. It's more people that's coming out saying this stuff. And I have the book, so I'm looking at it and I see the same thing. I'm just not on the platforms like they are. Let us review racial classification, tribal sovereignty, the Jim Crow era, and the federal recognition. It says, and he's got the terms here. Racial classification, the system used to enforce segregation. Can you send me links to your recommendations on the books and people who you watch? In-depth research is needed and not the surface level limelight teachers. I appreciate your research. I love my dark skin and big lips, LOL, even though I used to be teased a lot. Exactly. Yes, you have to embrace who you are, most definitely. I will definitely send that to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop right here because I'm on page 28. Actually, let me go ahead and read page 28 and 29 because it's almost done and I'm going to wrap it up. So he's got it broken down to racial classification. We read that. It says the system used to enforce segregation and discriminatory practices, and it often left little room for acknowledging other racial and ethnic backgrounds. Then he's got tribal sovereignty. Many Native American tribes or corporations have their own rules and requirements for tribal membership. Yeah, and they keep the dark skins, us, out. The light skins keep the dark skins out. They don't recognize us. But they know who we are. They know who we are. And it says requirements for tribal membership, which have included lineage or blood quantum requirements, although they are not ethnologically Indian. And that's true. The Jim Crow era. During the Jim Crow era, which extended from the late 19th century through much of the 20th century, laws and regulations often rigorously classified individuals by race and ethnicity, making it difficult for people to claim American Indian identity, and it's true. And then the federal recognition. The federal government recognized certain Native American tribes, providing them with legal status and certain rights. However, gaining federal recognition as a tribe has been a lengthy and challenging process for many groups. The U.S. established a formal federal recognition process. The 1978 process was initiated by the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA, which is another bullshit ass corporation or appointed government entity, right? And was later codified into the federal regulations known as Part 83 process. Of course, all U.S. recognition processes happen after the establishment of PL 90-285, April 11, 1968, 82 Statute 77, popularly known as the Indian Civil Rights Act of 1968, to further disconnect us from our heritage. So you see what I'm saying? They systematically put these people in places and set up government programs and laws to support these people and still keep a boot on our necks. And that's the truth. I mean, that is what I'm reading it. And I've went on the websites and looked at these laws, these government laws, and I'm like, holy shit. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney, but I do read it. And it's just like, how did we even fucking get here? I mean, literally, we've been lied to from jump. And it says, remember, as I stated before, melanated people have no history or greatness other than proving rape, murder, and genocide of the melanated people on the Western Hemisphere and worldwide in the name of civilization. What we know as history today is the byproduct and consequence of the Act of 1871, which opened the door for us to be completely disassociated from the American landscape through eugenics, using statutes and codes to effectuate our continued demise. I say this because no one sitting in the Republican or Democratic parties speak to our needs as American Indians, aka Black indigenous people of color, because their constituents are big businesses and immigrants, whether first generation or not, to share in America's wealth. The relationship is forged out of the necessity to keep these corporations and the subsidiary businesses using economic, social, judicial, medical practices designed to profit off of every part of the system we engage in, right? And he's right. Sadly, they've whitewashed these parts of history, often glorified the westward expansion as the American people's pursuit of economic development in the Western frontier, claiming that it is accelerated in the improvement of American democracy, the economic prosperity, and it contributed to the formation and the development of the American national spirit, making no mention of the brutal riots and massacres. We have been misled about our country and this corporation by design, because what has been created is not equipped to ever rehabilitate itself and would show its true extent of its xenophobia. And then he goes into all of the wars on these different pages. And I mean, he has a bunch of them. He's got at least, and I'm just eyeballing it here, he's got at least 20 pages of wars here in the United States. And this is documents. You can go look it up. Now he does have pictures in here. He's got the Indians here, the scouts, 500 soldiers that were massacred. Look them up. I mean, he's got it all documented here. We can go pull it online and look this shit up. I mean, and I'm going to do that. I mean, I actually believe 100% of what he's saying, but I'm the type of person, I want to go look at it too. I just want to see what's going on. I mean, he's got, if you look at, I don't know if you can see, he's got all these pages right here. There's nothing but wars in the United States. This is what's happened to our people. So, Curtis, you and I mean, I'm blessed to now know that based on my grandmother's sisters and my grandfather, they told me who they were, what tribes they came from. Now it's the point of me laying it in on a genealogy, which I have done, and then continuing out that from there, from which I've gotten. So, I'm doing that for my children as well as my nieces and nephews, because some of them feel like we're from the Congo and we're not, based on some entertainment test that was taken in the family. And so I have a point to prove to show that our people, our ancestors, were from here. They were from here. And some of them came down from Canada too, but they were of America's, North American heritage. So anyway, I'm glad you guys were able to join me. Thank you so much, Curtis. I am going to inbox you these books. And I don't know if you could take a screenshot. I'm going to hold it up. So this is the first book, if you want to screenshot it. So, and then this is the second book. It's by Jamil. Both of them are Amazon. And then I'll send you a list of the other books that I got. I got quite a few. I know you've seen 100 Years of Lynching. This one. White Cargo. There's another one, The Negro Project, with Margaret Singer. And it talks about the eugenics with Walter Plucker and a couple of other people. This one is The Birth of a White Nation. I actually reached out to this lady, the author. She's here in Texas. This is her on the back. I've reached out to her. Yeah, I will most definitely send you a list. It's actually on my page too. If you want to scroll down on this page, I posted it as a bunch of books. It's a long post. There's about 20 books in there that I have. But you know, I will send you a list of people that I follow too. You know, more importantly, you know, this information is difficult to hear, and a lot of people are still, they have a lot of cognitive dissonance. They won't do the research, and it'll go in one ear and out the other because they're comfortable in this illusion. And so therefore, ergo, they will not even heed to anything that I'm saying. They won't. It'll go in one ear and out the other. And that's fine. Let those people continue to live that lie and live that life, because it's all going to come crashing down one day. And the most important thing is to know who you are. And then that's truly that's why I'm doing this, is because people need to understand what has transpired. They do the research themselves, but just give them the tools, give them the information, and let them go check it out. They've broken their own laws, wow, so many times, and then turn around and create laws. Yes, yeah, that's the name of the game. Because most people don't know, and per Jordan Maxwell, we're operating on maritime law. We are operating as straw men in maritime law. We really are. We have two identities, and actually these people don't even consider us to be alive. If you really want to know the truth, that's why they call us black or Negro, which is a nod to necromancy. You know, the communication of dead things, right? And I mean, black is absence of void of color. It's all by design. I'm telling you, when you start looking at the stuff, you're gonna be like, oh my God, you know, it's like going down a rabbit hole. But it's very interesting to me because I know who I am. I know who my family is, and I want to reclaim that heritage and teach that to, you know, my children, my grandkids, and most importantly, my nieces and nephews, because they need to know we're not black. We're far from it. We're actually indigenous. We're autochthonous beings here in these lands, and our ancestors lived here peacefully, and they lived on the land and with the land, and we were infiltrated. And I mean, and it's true. We did have, within our communities, we had light-skinned people. I don't say white. We had light-skinned people that were born into the family. They were. And I mean, it's possible to have, you know, on average, 2 dark-skinned melanated people can have a white baby. And it's very possible to have that. It's like 250 born per year. It's some kind of genetic mutation that happens, but it is 100% documented and 100% factual. So we did have light-skinned brothers and sisters that lived here, that came over peaceably and subjugated into the land with us and with our tribes, and they fought and they died beside us. So in no way, shape, or form am I throwing shade or hate to any of my light-skinned brothers and sisters. I'm just speaking facts. But most of them will tell you that their parents were immigrants and their great-grandparents were immigrants, that they need to know their history too. They need to understand when they came over here, right? When they came over here. And some of them were orphans, like they don't know their lineage. They were on the orphan trains. They were Cabbage Patch babies. They were. Some of them were, and they don't want to talk about it. They're embarrassed about it, and they care not to talk about it because they've grown up, they've produced their own families, they have their own lives, their careers, their lineage. And so they're not looking back and discussing that. Some of them who are honest and truthful, they will tell their family members that they were adopted and that they were part of the orphan trains. They were. And then, my heart goes out to them, because not only were we mistreated and massacred, raped, beaten, and killed, right? But their family was too. Their family was torn apart. Their mothers and sisters were, their mothers, brothers and sisters and fathers were indentured servants. Some of them were prisoners of war. They did the same thing. They shipped their asses everywhere and took the kids. And it even says in the Hidden Lands of Antarctica, one of the books that I was reading a while back, Curtis, it said that, and I hate to say this on here, but if a child was over the age of 6 months, they would unalive them. And they would keep the ones under 6 months because they could groom them and put them in schools in indoctrination. They call them Indian boarding schools or asylums and things like that. They have different names for them back then at the turn of the century. But basically, they would re-educate them and grow them up into what these people would do in key positions of power. And they would have a lot of elites that would adopt these children and place them in seats of power. They did. And that's all documented on paper. Nobody wants to talk about it, though. So, I mean, we were screwed. They screwed us by coming over here and doing the things that they did. But also they screwed the ones that came over too, because they were indentured servants. And some of them possibly did come over here to have a better life, but they were in the middle of a war. They came over and they had to pick a side. And some of them came over to our side. And they were, I've seen pictures where there were white and black people hanging from a tree, right? Both colors, light skin and dark skin. So a lot of people have died and bled in this country, in this soil, for these corporations and these 1%ers to do what they're doing right now. And so, the stuff I talk about is always shadow banned or censored. They always do that. They give me strikes all the time on social media. I'm like, I am nobody. I'm a little person. And if I can figure all this stuff out, being the person I am, why can't the next person do it? You know what I'm saying, Curtis? Why can't they do it? Talking about things that are relevant and need to be talked about and spoken up about, they will shadow ban you. But the things they talk about, like P. Diddy and Sexy Red and all that BS, they won't censor that shit. They won't. They'll keep putting that out there to distract our people, to distract us from the truth. And enough is enough. So anyway, I'm glad you joined me, Curtis. Thank you so, so much. And I will most definitely send you a link of the websites of the people that I follow. A couple of them are on this page. James Lucifer Red Wolf. I see what they didn't want to hear the song Strange Fruit. They didn't want to hear. Yeah, exactly. I'll make sure I send you those links to those videos of people that I follow on my social media platforms, because I've kind of limited myself to certain people. I don't just follow anybody anymore, because I know a lot of people talk a lot of shit, but they really don't know anything. And they're miseducating a lot of people. So my thing is, I'm just reading the books that I find interesting and that resonate with me because I understand what has transpired and who's running shit. You know what I mean? And so it's sad, but it has to be discussed in our community. It does. So anyway, I hope you have a good night, and I'll make sure I message you with that information. You guys, remember, be the change you want to see all around this planet, because it's up to you and I to make a positive change. Bye.